Hi everyone and welcome back to Coachy TV. This is the second part of a video series on long hill strength runs. We're going to talk about the training design in this video. If you missed our first video on the science behind these, I would watch that video first. It's in the description down below. I am Kyle Giacono. I'm the head boys cross country and track coach at Wharton High School in Tampa, Florida, and I have been for the last 6 years. If you'd like a closer look at my credentials, they are on the screen. So let's get right into the training design here of these long hill intervals. Now first up, these are intervals just like we've talked about previously. That means that you're going to have bouts of work mixed in with rest periods, which is actually the interval in these types of workouts. Kind of like your VO2 max or aerobic power type workouts. So the rest period is the interval, and the rest period allows you to have more total volume of this higher intensity work on each day. So these workouts are extremely demanding. You're teaching both strength and endurance on these workouts. So basically, these kids must be in very good shape before you actually start doing this. You need to do this probably the end of your specific prep phase leading into your pre-competitive phase, right around that time of year. So you've probably done 2 mesocycles of about 4 to 5 weeks already before you get into this. You've had some short hill workouts that we've talked about in previous videos, and if you've missed those videos are in the description down below, where you were looking at some other strength runs, some coordination. You've already taught some speed in there, so they've gotten the ability to have some ability to clear acid. You've done a lot of aerobic power or VO2 max type workouts already under their belt. So this is something that they're going to be stepping up to. You want to think about your training year. Most parts of the country, this is going to be September for cross country, probably like February, maybe early March for track if you start your season, if your championships are in the middle of May for your track season. Now, you must have a recovery run the day before or the day after, or an off day maybe the day before. I really don't like to give off days the day before a really high intensity workout like this. I think they tend to be a little lethargic, but you need to give them something easy the day before and the day after. These are very, very high intensity. The volume today is going to be high, and the intensity is going to be pretty high, and that's where you can kind of come into issue. So you have to make sure that you're prepping them going in and coming out of this so they can properly adapt. You need to treat these like a VO2 max or an aerobic power type day. These are even going to be a little bit harder with each specific rep, and you're going to probably have less total volume than an aerobic power day, but these are very, very demanding. Because these are run right at VO2 max, now aerobic power is very important for your 800 meter runner to begin with. We've talked about this in previous videos of the win indicators is tied into the kids' VO2 max and their running economy when you're talking about the 800. But you're going to probably want to adjust for these kids. That race is run at a much faster percentage of their VO2 max, so this workout is a little bit less specific for them, especially when you throw the hill into it. However, if it's a distance kid that you're having running more 800s that year, maybe you just think that they're going to be naturally better at that with some more training, but they've done more volume over the time period. A kid moving down, they can probably handle more of this. A 400-meter kid that you're trying to move out and stretch out to become an 800-meter kid, they may not get but maybe 2 or 3 of these a year. The rest of your kids are probably going to have maybe 4 up to 5 of these probably a training year. So you're just going to want to adjust depending on the type of 800-meter kid that you have. You want to find a hill that has only a 2 to 3% incline, and that's not very steep, guys. You want to think basically what an off-ramp of an interstate would look like, and no steeper than that. That very little incline, it should be about 1,000 to 1,600 meters. You want to have that range so that your kids that are better shape can get a full rep in, going maybe out to as much as a mile, and your lesser kids can do them around the same time, and then they catch up on the rest active recovery in between. Each rep should be fast, but should be able to be replicated throughout. You're going to tell them after a really good warm-up, a full solid warm-up. They're going to need one of their best warm-ups on these days because they're very, very intense. You're going to have them at the bottom of the hill, and you're just going to say, guys, go. And you're going to tell them to run until they've run for 5 minutes. Best effort, and they want to try and get to the same point each time. Not sprint out on the first one and then not even get close on the next ones. You want them to, if anything, you'd want them to maybe go out slightly conservatively. Don't tell them to go out slowly, but a little bit more conservatively on maybe rep 1 and 2, and then the second half of you'd want them to at least get faster if they're going to change at any point. And then they're going to jog back down 8 to 10 minutes. That's a lot of recovery, but this is very, very intense. So the 2 to 3% incline, while it doesn't seem like a lot, it will be after running on it for 5 minutes. It's also going to keep the overall pace down a little bit. You're going to treat this like a VO2 max day, and they're going to get that type of adaptation. But it's not going to be quite as fast. If you have a kid that maybe is doing aerobic power workouts and they're running right at 5 flat, they might not get right to a 1600. They might get to 1400 meters or something like that. But they're still going to be going pretty intense, and you want to be able to replicate it. And the 2 to 3% incline is going to allow them to have the correct knee lift. You don't want them to just be not getting out of their race specific mechanics by having to have a 5, 6, 7% incline. It just doesn't benefit them in the race. Now they're going to jog back down. Make sure that to jog. Don't have them try and catch up or anything on their maybe slower teammates as they're on this. It should be very, very low intensity. Their heart rate should be able to recover in 8 to 10 minutes back into under 100 and, around 120, something like that. It's still going to be pretty high, and that'll make this almost a continuous type run if you do all this for almost 30 minutes as you're doing this. So that's going to be the rest period. Maybe you have some water back at the start line. The hill that I have, it kind of goes around a turn, so they just kind of jog back down. The ones that are going a little bit shorter eventually get caught back up by their teammates that are a little bit maybe better trained or more trained, and then they all get down to the bottom of the hill all together. They get a quick drink, and they're pretty much ready to go on the next one. Don't let them just stand around, because the jogging is going to help them get some aerobic benefit, and they are going to clear any acid that they have developed. Start low. You might start with just 2 reps on the first one, especially with maybe these kids that can only go 1,000 meters. You're going to rather have 2 really good ones than try and stretch out a third one and have the third one just be for nothing. Start with 2 to 3, especially if you've never done these before. Build to 4. You might get to 5. I had a kid last year that probably could have maybe gone to 5. This was a kid that was like a 917 kind of kid, very good aerobic shape, but I never even pushed him to 5 just because of how demanding these are overall. Let's go ahead and move on to the next point. You can end with a 2 to 4 mile cool down to keep the volume in place, so that you're not only going to be running like maybe 4 miles on these day, 5 miles. You're going to be able to get a little bit more by having a good solid cool down. Now, as I mentioned, these are very, very intense. This period of the year is typically lacking with super important meets. Very beginning of your cross-country season, maybe it's your first meet or two. This is going to affect them for these meets. If you have this workout on a Monday and this race on a Saturday, they're going to probably still be feeling it, but you're going to give up that for sort of long-term development with these actual workouts. So some look-fors and danger points here. Make sure the hill is only 2 to 3%, as I mentioned, like a highway off-ramp. Too steep and the running mechanics are no longer helpful for translation to a race. Don't let them sprint the first and die off. It's better to be a few seconds slower on the first and be strong all the way throughout. Make sure they're jogging in between reps. As we mentioned, the slow, easy aerobic work helps clear any acid from the anaerobic system that's been touched on this workout. So they're actually going to run better reps by having easy work in between, and it's going to create some aerobic development, not just VO2 max endurance work. It's going to be aerobic capacity type of work going on here too. Make sure the course is safe, free of holes and loose ground. Make sure it's not super wet from maybe rain the day before. If you've got a safe road, you can do this. The one that I work on, we have to drive about 30 minutes north of Tampa to get to a good place. We don't have a lot of long hills in Tampa, Florida, but we can find one when we go a little bit further north. But it is on a road, but it's a country road that is very, very much not used. So we're able to do it on a road itself. There's actually shell on the side of the road, but if you have a very safe road, you can make this happen also. If you're lacking anything else to do this safely on. It's best done in 4-week blocks. So we talked about for the short hill workouts, you're probably going to also do those in 4-week blocks if you can manage it with your training year. For the short hills, you went 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 4 weeks on. After you've done your short hills for probably 2 different mesocycles of 4-week blocks with the down period, you're going to have 2 more weeks off, and you can come back with this type of workout. Now, obviously, you're going to have to make some adjustments. Maybe you have to make one or two of your short runs earlier on in your second block of this into long runs. But once you've transitioned to long hills like this, you would not want to go back to short hills. This is something that you're going to want to make your last hill block of the season once you get to it. So best done in 4-week blocks. After you've done one block of this, don't go back to hills for the rest of the training year. Now, when I start getting into this part of the training year, I go to longer microcycles. I no longer deal with a 7-day cycle. I start going into more 9 to 10 days long. So I can actually potentially get, it might actually be a 5-week block, but I'm probably only doing 4 of these workouts in between, if that makes sense, because the 9 weeks, 10 weeks of it makes it last actually 5 weeks, but I'm still only getting 4 of these workouts in. You wouldn't try and squeeze 2 of these workouts in the same microcycle. So some key points to take away. The adaptations for runners for this include improved strength, improved endurance, both their overall capacity and their VO2 max development, and improved running mechanics or coordination. 3 of the primary motor performance abilities we talked about in part 1. There is no speed development like there is with short hills. Short hills, it was maximum effort for up to 200 meters straight up a hill. There's no speed works here, but by this point in the training year, end of specific prep, beginning of pre-competitive, you've transitioned to true speed workouts, and speed workouts meaning anaerobic glycolytic type work. So your speed, your special endurance 1, your special endurance 2, maybe you're doing speed endurance if you're dealing with 800, 1600 meter kids in a track season, and those would be done on flat ground. So you're not really needing to train speed or very quick mechanics on these days because you probably devoted full days to those now that you're at this part of the training year. Length of the rep should be 5 minutes, and so this makes it very specific to most of these events. We said the 800 runners, they can benefit, but maybe they would only need maybe 3 of these workouts or 2, depending on the type of 800 meter kid you're working with. Start small, 2 to 3 reps, and build up to 4. I've never done more than 4 in any one workout. These are very demanding to actually accomplish, so you don't want to get a 5th one in just because someone once told you can do up to 5. I would really target 4 unless you have very, very specifically strong kids that have been doing this for a long time and you know they can handle it. Fast but consistent reps. Reach at least the same point on each rep. You don't want to just have one good one and then fall off. You want to be consistent. Again, it should be done in 4-ish weeks during the end of specific prep, start of pre-competitive. I say 4-ish weeks only because your microcycles might be longer, but you're probably doing 4 of these workouts a year spread out throughout however you do your microcycles. And last point, add a good long cool down, 2 to 4 miles, allows for some additional aerobic development to continue. This is the biggest thing when we looked at that chart of specific race demands in part 1. All of these races are more aerobic than anaerobic, even the 800, so you want to make sure that you don't let the volume slip on these days. It's also going to clear the acid that may have developed on these days. If you have to travel far to go to a big hill, icing's probably not going to be possible, and this is actually probably better than icing. Not only is it going to get all those waste products out, inflammation, and especially acid, but it's going to allow, again, for that aerobic development to continue. So that's it for this video. If you like this video, please think about liking, subscribing, or commenting down below. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer those in the comments down below also. I'm probably going to continue with some different aerobic type workouts, things like critical velocity, marathon pace, some different things we haven't talked about yet in any video series. If you have any questions, again, ask those in the comments down below. And until next time, this has been Coachy TV.